Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, so we're asking, what's up with something on Fiverr? My name's Joel Young. I'm a top-rated seller on Fiverr since 2013 and one of Fiverr's top earners. And today we're asking, what's up with milestone projects? Should you be using them, and do you even have them available to you? That's right, today we're talking about a quirky little beta feature called the Milestone Project. We're going to be unwrapping what it is, seeing who has access to it, and talking about the pros and the cons of actually using a Milestone Project as opposed to a regular custom offer. So before we dive in, I'd just like to poll the community. How many of you out there have the option of using a Milestone Project when you're sending a custom offer? Now, I'll show you in just a minute how you can get there, so you might need to check that out first to see if it's available to you, but I'm curious, how many of you have that available to you? Since it's beta, I can only assume it's just a few of you, and how many of you have used it with what kind of results? Leave us your answer down below with the QOTD tag. That way we know and everybody can share their answers and benefit from your experience. So let us know down below in the comments. Now, just like I said, I'll show you where this is found in your Fiverr dashboard, or rather in your Fiverr inbox, so you can see whether or not you'll be able to use it. What you do is you would go to send a custom offer in your inbox to a buyer just like normal, and if it's available to you, you should see this little notification box at the top of the custom offer telling you that you can send this as a milestone project or as a project with one deliverable. You can just use the radio buttons to choose milestone project, and then you can see basically you can set different milestones and attribute a different dollar amount to each milestone as well as a time period to each milestone that will basically be like multiple different gigs within one project. So for instance, I have an animation project or an animation gig that would probably benefit or be a target niche for this kind of feature, where we often deliver multiple things. We'll deliver a script, we'll deliver a voiceover, then we'll deliver maybe a storyboard or the finished animation itself. And if we wanted to, we could break up our delivery into each section. Say script takes a day, whatever it is, the storyboard takes 7 days, the animation takes 7 more days, and I would get that amount of time for each one of those deliveries. Then I could attribute a dollar amount to that, and when the buyer accepts that portion of delivery, that dollar amount is automatically paid to me as though it was a completed gig. Each one of these is separate and in and of itself a little part of the project, and as it's completed, you get paid. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds like a really great idea, but there are several problems with milestone projects, and I want to talk about those today so we can understand what you're in for if you're using them. But first, I just want to kind of address why I think milestone projects were added as a beta and why they're being offered, because they seemingly solve two problems, one for the buyer and one for the seller. First, it allows the seller to ensure that they get paid for every piece of the work they complete. So for instance, if you do a multiple delivery project and you have one order, let's say it's a $500 order or a $100 order, it doesn't matter what the amount is, but let's say it's a $500 order and you have 5 pieces within there that are all $100 a piece of work roughly. Well, if you do the first 4 pieces, but then you get to the 5th and there's something wrong, your buyer becomes all of a sudden just really irritable, hard to work with, and they say, you know what, this is not meeting my expectations, I want to cancel. Guess what happens? If there's a cancellation goes through, they get a full refund on that $500. But if you had done milestone projects where they had actually approved the first 4 pieces as they walked, they could walk on that 5th piece of the puzzle, ask for a refund, but you would get to keep your $400. You see, this solves the problem of not being paid for a portion of the work you've already done. If you've ever had that happen, you know how frustrating it is. You can do all this work for a buyer, and one thing goes wrong at the end, and maybe they want a refund, but even if they're willing, there's no way for you to give them a partial refund. We talk about this in another video. I will link it right up here about refunds on Fiverr and how partial refunds are not a thing, and that's frustrating. But this could potentially solve the problem of partial refunds for sellers and make sure that they get paid for the work they're completing in a project as they're completing it, and possibly get that money earlier if it's a long drawn out process. So that's the first thing I think Milestone Projects is trying to to solve for sellers. Then there's something for the buyers. It actually gives the buyers the opportunity to stop the process at any point if they're unsatisfied. Without having to demand a full refund. We shouldn't always assume that buyers want a full refund. A lot of buyers want to compensate you for the work you've done, but at some point they realize that it's not working. They might feel bad, or they might try to make it work even longer. Which is something I hope every buyer does, is try to make things work all the way to the end as far as they can before ever asking for a cancellation. But this, for the buyer side, gives them an opportunity to pay as they go on a longer or larger project with more elements, to say, okay, this looks good, let's keep going. This looks good, this keeps going. Or if they hit a snag, go, I don't think we're going to end up where I want to, so let's just call it quits here. And it might actually lower the risk factor for the buyer, knowing that they won't lose all of their money. They might lose a portion if it doesn't go as planned. So that's the benefit that I see to both the buyer and the seller. And I don't think those are far-fetched. I think they're really achievable benefits that can come through this. But like I said, I have some doubts about Milestone Projects. And if you were to ask me, if I were to answer the question of the day, do you use Milestone Projects? I would say I have, but I don't. Even though one of my services in particular, Animation Explainer videos, is very well suited to the milestone aspect, I don't use Milestone Projects, and I have more success with one delivery projects. And here's a few reasons why that you may want to consider if you're going to jump into using Milestone Projects or consider them in the future for your work. The first is it adds a ton of steps for your buyer. And I'll kind of mix this with number two. That means it adds to the confusion for the buyer. If there's anything I want to do as a seller, it's make the entire process easy, make it less of a requirement for them to log in every day, even though I want them engaged. But when I used Milestone Projects, I found that it added too many steps for the buyers, and it frustrated them. It confused them. Hey, I delivered this. Do I need to approve this now? What do I need to do? If I approve it, is it all over? Because this is only a part of the work. Like, they don't really understand Milestone Projects. Even buyers who have purchased on Fiverr before, use the platform, they're familiar, they just don't get it. And so for that reason, I think there's too many steps involved and too much what we would call friction in the e-commerce world to them completing that process with a positive experience enough to leave you a 5-star review. I find the friction is much less and the confusion is much less if we do a one delivery project, because if I send them a message with a script that they need to approve, all they have to do is send me back a message that say, yes, this looks good, or say, I want to change something. And there's not this complication of, do I accept it? Do I click revision? Do I have to do this 5 times in this project or whatever it is? It just takes the confusion down, which I think is very good. And then the other side of things is that I think because of that confusion and that multiple steps, that it actually adds to the timeline of the project. Because really, if you're trying to put the actual days in these steps that it takes you to do these things, it may total 21 days, and you may say our total project's 21 days, but if you deliver each project and they take like 2 or 3 days to approve it before, or each milestone, and they take 2 to 3 days before you can go on to the next milestone, well then, 3, 4, 5 steps, you've added maybe a week to a 2 or 3 week project, and it's taken longer, which makes your buyer more frustrated. So for those reasons, I don't use the Milestone Project feature because I find it adds too much hassle, too much confusion, and too much extra time to the process that I could normally get done faster, quicker, and easier with just a one delivery process. Now, I know that might put me at risk for having that occasional project that goes awry where there's a full refund that's needed and I might not get paid for part of the work that I've done. But in my business, in my world, that's a very rare thing, like 1 out of 1,000 maybe. And so I'm going to take that risk to make sure that I get more people through the process satisfied and not just try to use a new feature. So I think that's what you have to ask yourself, is not only does my service lend itself to multiple milestones, but am I willing to, for the benefits, risk what I might lose in expediency and clarity and, promptness and all these things. I think you have to ask yourself that, weigh it out, and maybe try it for yourself. Honestly, I only came to that conclusion after doing several milestone projects on my own, and then I actually decided it wasn't right for me. And oh yeah, here's one more thing I just thought of, wasn't even on my list. You cannot view milestone projects on the app. It's stupid. Why have a feature that doesn't work on the app? You have to go to the mobile site on your browser. But if there's a milestone project and you get a notification for it in your app and you click on that notification, it'll say, you can't view milestone projects on the app. It doesn't even work. Go back to your desktop or look at the desktop version on your phone. Silly, and just another reason why it's not worth it to me to use milestone projects. Hey, thanks so much for joining me for today's video. If you like this one, I got lots more where that came from. We do a video every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday trying to help Fiverr sellers like you. So if you're new, subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified by hitting that bell and clicking every time we put out a video. If you like the content today, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps to support the channel. And if you want to go deeper, get exclusive access to our Friday videos. They're only for Fiverr Talks insiders. Join me at patreon.com/DJYoung. You'll get all the details. You'll get a monthly Q&A video, which is coming up here at the beginning of November. You don't want to miss that. You can jump in today. There's still time. And you'll get online mentorship from me, direct access to ask me questions and messages. So until next time, people, keep doing, because the future favors the doers.